offered to do it before.
Thank you, Chief. All right, I am going to call this July 8th Common Council Finance and Audit Committee meeting to order. It is 6:32. Joining us are committee members Ben Clough, Carol Mickens. Filling in for Majority Leader Hirsch is Alderman Mike Ham. Filling in for Sarah Pasty, who's Alderwoman Marissa Marvelli. President Schott and Alderwoman David Pass are also joining us. The first order of business is an update from the comptroller. John, all of you.
Thank you. Okay. I want the new figures through May. We're not fully posted through June at this point. Most of the categories that have been favorable continue to be favorable. Over time, did move from the favorable bucket to the unfavorable bucket. We've been running a little hot on overtime in public safety departments. I did make a note here as well. The hospital medical insurance, we're still on pace to exceed budget by approximately $650,000. The retirement accumulation, that 277 over modified budget, that unfavorable balance, a lot of those were cleared up at last night's council meeting. So, there's still some more transfers to submit, but that's largely cleared up. Sales tax revenue, you have an attachment here. It's really been all over the board. This last payment that we received is actually down 10% over the same payment last year. We're still tracking up 10% year to year. But it's been very variable so far this year. So we don't have an explanation why. We don't see the backup nor does the counting of those payments. It's just something to keep in mind as we're going through the year, something to keep an eye on. I'll continue to report payment by payment as we go through the year. It's gonna be important to get to budget time. I feel better if there was like a consistent trend one way or another, in terms of, giving you where I think we're gonna end up for the year. On the unfavorable expenditure variances on the first page, I did update. You'll see the general contract expenses. All the pipeline settlements that were approved by the council to the individual property owners have been paid out. We're not including what was approved last night. So we're talking about things that are favorable, things that are unfavorable. That's 1.2 million that came out of fund balance this year to pay those settlements. So there's some positive sales taxes up over $700,000, but we pulled that 1.2 million out for the pipeline. In terms of other updates, in terms of revenues, there's been interest in speed camera revenue. The way it works is I can see what is coming in, but there's a significant delay between the revenue reporting and when it comes in, because the revenue for any given month is due at the end of the following month. So at the end of June, we got May. May was the first full month that the cameras are up and running. So the month of June's revenue, we won't foresee until the end of July. But as of today, when I went online, our share of the revenue collected to this point is $260,000. We also get reporting on compliance data and things like that. Because in the finance committee, really just bringing the revenue numbers. So you have that. Ambulance fees were $610,000 versus $1.9 million revenue budget. We're tracking a little behind budget on that, but it started to pick up. I'll continue to monitor that. The trip volume was just down a little bit. Some of it tends to pick up. So just another item to keep an eye on. I gave you updated investment balances, community preservation available balance. $618,000, $618,471 is what we've been collecting. We haven't appropriated at this point. The recreation fee reserve, I have a spreadsheet so you can see those numbers. And that's a separate attachment. And I think that's the main part of it. I know there's some questions going back and forth. I tried to answer them as best I could. I don't think there's a new attack in cannabis tax. There's really not much in the way there. We've collected almost $38,000, but that's just for one quarter. And potentially we can get another payment in for that quarter. So there's a bit of a gap between the floating periods and when the city received money from campus. And you also have the extra enforcement report. That's the last page of my report. 17 shifts. And just so you know, 17 shifts mean it's 17, we didn't go out 17 separate times. It's shifts with 17 employee shifts. So several of the shifts had more than one employee. So if there are two employees working, we call it 2 shifts. It's typically approximately 3 weekdays a week, and we try to do 2 Saturdays a month. That's really based upon staff availability. I mean, they have personal lives too. The overtime's not mandatory, so you know, if there's something happening in someone's personal life, they can't make it. We we'll with one person on a Saturday if we have to. We try to have 2. The weekdays we generally just have 1 employee working.
For the comptroller? That's pretty good answer. Okay. Thank you, Joe. Up next, we have the request for a budget transfer from the Kingston Fire Department, Chief Ray.
Okay, good evening. What occurred was 15-0, which is our oldest ambulance. We're coming back from a mutual aid call and the rear differential went out. Talked to the mayor, and the mayor said, see if you can find anything out there, another used ambulance out there that I can find. There really wasn't anything even close by that I could find that was worthy. And then we made a decision to put money into it. It is our oldest, it's 2006 vehicle. But we needed to have all 5 vehicles running for July 4th, which we did. But in that, it cost us, $9,338 with the rear differential in. Now, I have put in for a federal grant for a brand new ambulance. That ambulance I can't use that ambulance to replace because of miles. They'll kick me right out because of the low miles that it has. Not because of the age of it or the amount of money we're putting into it, but because of the miles. So I put it in to replace the 2016 that has 120,000 miles on it, which gets us in the competitive range because anything over 100,000 miles on it is, it's time to put it to bed. So that I do have, we have applied for that. Hopefully nobody in the summer whether we get that or not. That'd be a brand new ambulance. If we do not get that, I'll be back at budget time asking for a brand new ambulance.
What's the cost of a brand new ambulance, Chief?
With the stretcher, 268,000. That's with power load stretcher, which alleviates backing and machine liquidation up. Puts it in the back.
And what is the delivery time between ordering and
We buy ambulances off the lot.
Oh, okay.
So I would go to Syracuse or I'd go to down Jersey, North Jersey, and see what's on the lot. We don't stack them.
President Shaw and then Alderwoman Meggins.
So with this repair, you're only anticipating it lasting a short time with that?
No, they'll have it done. No, it'll last because it's a spare ambulance. It's ambulance on the 5. So when that comes out, things are really bad. And another 5 comes out. So it will last. It's just that the 2016, those are 2 front runners, along with the one that Senator Hinckley bought us. So those 3. So 2016 with 120,000 miles on it, it's still going. And we just had to put get a door from Florida, because the door riding up the other one, a used door. So but they put it back together. So I label myself as a mass unit. We do everything we can with the ambulance. We keep them out on the road. We do an excellent job at it. It's just that one day we're not going to be able to have to find a plot for 2016.
So Alderwoman Meggins.
What was the mileage on the 2006?
2006 was only 25,000 miles.
How much?
25,000.
And so is there a resale market for it?
You're not going to get that much for it. No, there is a market for it, yes, but you're not going to get it.
It's 25,000 miles, not buy.
Alderman Fogg.
No, that was my question, was Alderman.
All right, any other questions for the chief before I read the committee report? Mike?
Yes, you don't think Senator Hinch wants to buy another one? Then,
I'll ask anybody.
all right.
I'll ask anybody. They go out continuously. So.
All right, this committee report reads a transfer of funds from contingency to 4540.444 vehicle maintenance. Estimated financial impact is $9,338. Can I get a motion? Motion by Alderman Mickens, seconded by Alderman Fogg. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Up next is request for a budget transfer from building safety. Are you Steve tonight?
I am Steve tonight. So this is a pretty standard request to cover the payout of a employee who is separating service. I was happy to see that Steve was able to identify some funds within his own department to help offset some of the draw from contingency. That is what we do ask the departments to look at. They can't always, the earlier in the year, the tougher it is for departments to do that because, you know, you just know where your spending is going to lay out for the year. But Steve was able to identify over $13,000 to help soften the budgetary hit or the payout. So I recommend it and approve it.
Any questions for John? Okay. I will read the committee report. It's a transfer of $1,500 from longevity, $12,000 from regular pay, $7,124.60 from contingency to retirement accumulation for a total of $20,624.60. The estimated financial impact to the city is that $7,124.60. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Alderman Ham, seconded by Alderwoman Marbelli. Any discussion, questions?
Sure, just one comment, just for anyone who's not overly familiar with it. When employees separate service from the city, depending on how they separate service, whether they retire, they quit, contractually under the union contracts, there's generally a required payout. And depending on how they separate service would dictate what they're paid, you know, whether it's vacation and sick. And it also depends on which union contract. So all these payments are contractually required. We generally expect to pull the money from contingency to make these payments. Mike asked me a good question the other night. You know, why don't we include these in departmental budgets? We used to do that. But what we're finding is we're budgeting a lot of retirements that never happened. And you could say over budgeting, we had additional funds then that departments would then request to transfer money from that to somewhere else and potentially spend it somewhere else where they had overages. So, you know, we decided, let's keep this in the hands of the council. You know, we'll keep it because we account for that. We're developing a contingency budget each year. We have an idea that, you know, every year should be several $100,000 of requests to make these separation service payments. So it's all part of the strategy to help minimize tax increases and, you know, kind of keep a tighter rein on departmental spending. So, so you will see these. I mean, they're pretty common. You'll see them, you know, multiple times a year, and that's expected. And so far this year, I don't think it's been out of the ordinary.
Thank you, John. Do we pay out for sick time for everybody or just for like longstanding employees?
So it depends. Most, so police and fire have unlimited sick. They do not accrue sick, they have unlimited sick. So there's no paid sick time there. CSCA generally is only paid out sick upon retirement.
Okay.
And then department heads, generally get, department heads who oversee CSE employees, would be paid sick upon separation service.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Got a good job here. Payout account. Terry.
Does this include this payout? Does it include longevity pay? Longevity pay?
No, their payout, longevity is paid, for CSC employees on their anniversary date. So, it's not something that you get as you walk out the door. If you were here, it's paid the payroll on or before your anniversary date. So it is the payroll closest to your anniversary date. Now, if your longevity date is June 1st and you decide you want to retire April 30th, you miss that longevity payment. Conversely, if you retire June 5th, you do get the longevity payment, right? Okay.
Jen, what about holidays? Do they get use it or lose it? How does that work? Do you gotta pay that out, depending on department heads to employees?
Let's just talk generally CSEA and
Yeah,
I'll keep it to like City Hall because DPW they have like floating holidays and things like that, but holidays is, you get paid if you are working during that period. There's no rule of it. So,
vacation, I meant vacation.
vacation, you were always paid upon separation of service. Every employee.
There's not up to a certain date,
That's what I was gonna say.
like up to 15 days.
Well, there's limits on how much you can accrue from year to year,
Oh,
right? So like, like CSEA, they can accrue 10 days from year to year. So if you accrue 25 days at the beginning of the year,
We better do so.
and you had 10 days in the book in your bank coming into the year, you gotta use all 25 days or you're gonna end up losing a day.
Okay.
But when they separate service, whatever they have in that bank, they get paid out, but there's limits as to how much they carry over. And every union contract has different accrual limits of vacation time, and they all get vacation time. They can all carry from year to year. But there's different limits and different contracts that we have to monitor.
all right. Any other questions? All right, this already is a motion second. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Up next is bonding request for the Albert Brown Community Center project. Ruth Ann?
Today, Carol and John were having an exchange and there was a question about ARPA that came up, so I printed out the latest ARPA report.
No, I actually.
Okay, so I'm here to request a resolution for bonding for the match on our $3 million grant for the Albert Brown Center. And we're requesting it at this time because the funder is requiring it in order to move forward with executing that contract. So essentially, that's the basics of it. Everyone's familiar with the Albert Brown project. I don't need to explain what it is. Are there any specific questions you'd like to pose?
Alderman Mickens?
Yeah, so, I don't know if this is for you or for John. So is it specifically required that it be a bond from this particular grant or just
It's
that
evidence
recognize that this
of
funding
a
is
formal commitment of what the match will be.
right?
So, right now, what we're looking at is fulfilling the match with a second grant for $300,000.
Right.
Another state grant we're allowed to use as match, and it's short of the full commitment. So
Right.
we need an additional $450, and that's what the bond request is.
Okay.
For.
So, does it have to be in the form of a bond? Can we take those funds, can we commit those funds from, sorry, I'm just reading what I had asked. From the, a cash balance, actually, this. Oh, yes, this was, the question about whether or not we could use, a different source of funding for the 255. Oh, okay, this was for, I'm sorry. This was the rec fee.
Directly.
Yeah, that those monies, which there's a balance of $255,000 there in available funds. If those funds could be allocated for this purpose.
From the funder's perspective, yes,
Okay,
but that's a larger question. I'll let
Right.
John address that one.
Yeah, and I responded, Terrell, from just, that's good, from a, availability standpoint, I did a calculation of what may be available. Provided that the council believes that the use of the funds falls within the use of the rec fee reserve. I tend to think that it does, but I'm not an attorney, I know that the language is probably subject to interpretation, right? The only question I would have, and I copied the mayor in my response, is whether or not he had any intention to use any of that money for anything else, whether there's, but there's no current obligation to use that money. I tend to think I don't know that I recommend using all of it, but perhaps, if the council's inclined to use some of it to soften the blow. There's pros and cons of using that money, right? It's a reserve that can be used to fund a lot of different things. This project has, we could borrow for it over 20 years. I estimate the debt service of the request that Ruth Ann asked for, just so we know what the numbers look like, right? I ran it through our amortization schedule, and this is just using approximations. It's about $30,000 a year. So to the extent that some of that is offset by some available funds, it would lower that amount. In an ideal world, these rec fee reserve funds would be used to pay for items that would have a shorter lifespan, like playground equipment, swing sets, things that might either come out of the current budget or things that have a shorter life. Only in that, if we were to borrow for that, we'd have to pay it back over a shorter time frame. Everything we borrow, we do a calculation of what's the useful life of that project.
Mhm.
So a building is obviously going to have a longer useful life than some playground equipment, right? So, to give you the craziest example, a police vehicle has a useful life of 3 years. So, when we borrow for it, we have to pay it over 3 years. This, to pay for the building, it'd be a 20-year asset. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if you use the $100,000 or $450,000 to pay for this, you're going to save $30,000 in the budget. If there was $450,000 playground equipment spend that maybe had a 10-year life, you could save $60,000 in the annual budget, only because I have to pay for it over a shorter time frame. Take that for what you will. It's still a valid use. We can use, I believe, I think the council would have to make a determination if they agree with that or not, of whether or not it falls into that category. The only caveat really on my end is whether or not the mayor has any objection if he had any intended use for those monies. But from my end, they appear to be available.
Okay.
All right, so.
And then, my third question had to do with, could the $450,000 come from the city's capital fund, which was formerly the ARPA funding?
Hey,
It's left over.
okay, so then in that instance, that's where Ruth Ann passed this out. So this is her report that they in front of you is where we stand with those monies. All the monies that were remaining from the prior ARPA grant have an intended use in our plan.
Yes.
So, once again, I think the mayor would have to be consulted, but it would really require pulling money from something that's already planned on spending, right? And some of these actually have a pretty current financial impact. For an example, like one project was the mental health services for the ambulance, and that we would actually have to budget those costs in the city budget if we pull the money away from there. This is going to save us some money in the budget for next few years. So this is where those monies are currently earmarked for. And that's where, the mayor's placed them. So, it's not necessarily my fault to say they're available. This was, the plan for where he intended to use them.
Any other questions?
I wasn't here on the council last year, so I'm assuming the finance committee supported the grant application last year, correct?
Yes, actually, we did.
And it
get a
was the same
resolution. Pardon me?
It was, we knew that this was the same amount that we knew.
Yes. In fact, it was a rare occasion where the state said that what you apply for is what you will receive, or you won't receive anything. So we're really delighted actually that we want the full 3 million.
And then what is, the second grant in NYS, New York State OCS?
That's the Office of Children and Family Services, and we received that. Michelle Mitchie was able to secure it in the state budget for us, so it's actually the amount of money was assigned to that agency to administer the grant with us. So it was really, didn't actually have to apply for it upfront. She lined that up for us.
I just do want to point out, because of this topic of conversation for the last few days, that this project was in the capital improvement plan.
Excuse me?
It was in the capital improvement plan, and as Ruth said, we did vote in favor of it last year. I do notice in the capital improvement program though, or sorry, multi-year capital plan, we should refer to it by its document name. We actually estimated it for bonding for this year at $152,000. So I was curious what the difference, where that difference comes from.
That one there, because the capital improvement plan is a static document, it's annual. I believe this grant was, we're notified of the approval after correct me if I'm wrong, Ruth Ann, I was looking at dates. I believe I saw something from late last year on this grant, right? So at the time that the capital improvement plan was submitted last year, there was no knowledge that we would.
Okay.
The grant wasn't received, so what you'll see in there is really if you look at the grant funding report that Ruth Ann submitted last time, that this grant, the New York State, the OCS grant, New York State Office of Children and Family Services, the capital improvement plan was based upon that grant. The 486 grant project cost, the grant amount of $300,000 with the expectation that there would be bonding involved. The next capital improvement plan, obviously, now that we've been awarded this $3 million grant, the scope of the project will be expanded on the capital improvement plan and would be added in there.
Okay. Thank you. Terrell, go ahead.
So the Albert Brown from the schedule, the anticipated bonding was going to be 152,000.
Based upon the original grant, the original $486,000 total project cost.
Yeah,
Right.
that 486 came from cost estimates for the basic ADA improvements that were needed. That's the real project cost that we were facing, but the grant was only 300, so that's why we were requesting additional bonding.
Ruth, did you have your hand up? Okay. Any other questions for Ruth Ann or for John on this? Okay, I will read the committee report that I just placed here. This committee report reads, request to authorize a bond ordinance in the amount of $450,000 for the required grant match related to a $3 million DASNY grant for the Albert Brown Community Center Improvements Project. The total project cost is $3,750,000. It is expected that $300,000 of the required match will be met by a New York State Office of Children and Family Services grant. The remaining $450,000 will be covered by a long-term bond by the city. The estimated financial impact is $450,000. Can I get a motion? Motion by Alderwoman Marvelli, seconded by Alderman Falk. Any discussion on this? Terrell?
Yeah, I'd like to put the question to the mayor as whether or not the rec fund could be used, if he'd be inclined to do that, to offset some of the bonding costs. Or,
Well, it is ultimately our choice to expend the rec fund.
okay,
Mayor doesn't appropriate.
We're the appropriate body. If we want to use the rec fund, we're saying use the rec fund.
okay.
Like, we're about to say we don't want to use the rec fund.
Maybe just to clarify too, I mean, one thing you could consider doing is, if you want to have that conversation with the mayor and you end up, you want to appropriate money for the rec fund, you can have the bond ordinance in place. And if there was an approval to use the rec fund, we would use that to offset the bonding. Yeah.
And maybe John, if you wanna go
Future
to,
month.
if we pass this, when it would actually go out to bond, I assume you're gonna ban this with other
Yeah, so
bonds in the future?
we generally borrow once a year. This year, I believe I'm gonna have to do it twice. That's I've been spent a lot of time on this the last few weeks. We're borrowing next month. There's some large projects. There's the Flatbush Foxhole sanitary sewer project, and there's the fire station. So they're kind of fluid. I'm trying to work on cash flows. So we're probably gonna borrow now. And I say now, I have to finalize my list in 7 days. It's July 15th, and probably again in November, with that note coming due in August. So depending on where this is, I'll have to get together with Ruth Ann and get a cash flow schedule on this, and I may borrow for this in the fall. It's not gonna be in July. At the earliest it would be in the fall, with the possibility that we wait until next August to borrow for it. So, and if we borrow for it for the first time in the next August, the first payment won't be till the following August. Because you pay, these are 1 year, generally 1 year notes. 1 year is the maximum amount of time I can take it out. And you make the principal payment, when it matures in that 1 year period. Then you can skip a principal payment if you want. We generally don't, because it costs more and so.
And our resolution is to authorize a bond of up to $450,000. So if in between now and November, we can pass a resolution allocating X number of dollars from the rec fund, that would reduce that burden of the bond that's ultimately gone out for it.
There's a small chance we might find additional grant money, so we put that in.
Thank you.
Awesome.
If it helps, in all likelihood, I don't like to give definites, but in all likelihood, the earliest we borrow for this would be next August.
As far as the project itself is the schedule, we haven't issued the RFP for the design yet. We expect that to start in the fall. So we're looking at maybe construction beginning next summer.
Okay. What summer programs happen at the, are we going to be missing out on summer programming?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer for it.
I guess I'll talk to Lindsay and maybe when they've selected a designer, we can have the designer present.
What is the scope of the work for the Albert Brown Center?
We don't have a set scope yet because it began with very much needed ADA upgrades.
Mhm.
There's no elevator in the building. There's a ramp that you have to go enter the building to get up onto the second floor. And the bathrooms aren't ADA compliant. So we were beginning with that. Then we won the second larger grant. So the engineering firm that we'll hire will first do a complete existing conditions report for us. And then we'll start prioritizing the different things that need to be done. So there's a huge amount of work that needs to be upgraded there.
So you got an as-built, right?
Say it again.
That's for the signs.
Yeah, so basically, you've got $3 million, right? 3.3 million. ADA ramp or ADA compliance, so whatever that cost is, that's line item already. And then whatever's left over, you're just gonna prioritize, so really don't have, there's no scope of work for the 3 million, is what I'm getting at.
Not yet.
Yeah. So how did you come to 3 million? So did we just,
That was the grant.
You know what?
I think that's a
Well,
great question to ask.
when we were applying for it, I forgot what the cap was. It was larger than 3 million, but we were considering, the common council's appetite for bonding too. So we didn't want to go too high on it because it might start to seem not reasonable. So that was part of the decision that we took in deciding how much to apply for. But overall, we expect this to be a multi-phase project over time. So, we'll get some community feedback about changes that could be made to, not just upgrading basketball court, but maybe using existing land that's there to add on. but we don't have to pay for that yet. So, over time, we'll probably do 2 or 3 phases for some project.
So I'm not familiar with DASME grant applications, so you're saying that for this application, they didn't need contractor estimates or preliminary plans or anything, it just, so what,
What they will need for the contract is a general idea of the scope of work, which we can't really finish until we get the existing conditions report. So we're trying to issue the RFP to get that going. And then we'll be able to finish the contract for the other grant.
So,
John, you had mentioned that within a month's time, you go to market, with these bonds. What's the total?
I don't know totally yet, because some of it is, let me just qualify. It ultimately is gonna depend on what I borrow for Flatbush Foxhall
Right.
and fire station, because typically I would borrow once a year. Both those projects are going to need a lot of capital between now and next year. I'm really trying to fine tune how much they're gonna need between now and the fall, because I'd like to wait till the fall to borrow what I'm gonna need to get me through. So after taxes flow in, because we can use tax money to cover some of the costs until I borrow again in August. It's all a way to save as much interest
Right.
expense for the city as we can. So what I can tell you is this, let me just pull up the document. Without those two projects, it's a pretty light borrowing. It's approximately 1.6 million. Is what I'm looking at borrowing next year. But it's gonna be several more million for those two projects. And then in the fall, I'm gonna borrow several more million for those two projects.
Do you have any idea approximately what the annual?
Debt service, the estimated principal on these payments on these are what I'm currently have 1.6 million is $125,000 a year. But, let's just say I borrow 8 million, I'm just throwing out numbers here.
Yeah.
So I really have to sit down and put, the bond payment on the firehouse, if we borrow 8 million between now and November, could be $300,000 a year debt service payment, $300,000 debt service payment next fall or next August, which would be, that's 2 points on the budget right there. The Flatbush Foxhall, the majority of that is sewer, so that's not gonna really drive the tax rate. The timing of how I borrow for East O'Reilly Street is somewhat critical, so I'm really trying to fine tune as much as I can. It's a bit of an art of borrowing that, because projects tend to go a little slower than what I'm told. So like I use that historical knowledge to, and then there's a delay when the work happens, when this applications for payment come in, when I actually have to get paid. So I try to build that all into my thinking of how much to borrow. Cash flow wise, we're extremely tight December and January. Until the tax payments come in. So the city really can't front money for capital projects in that time frame. So
I guess what I'm getting after is,
Yeah.
so you don't know what the actual issuance would be?
I will know, in another 2 weeks.
So I think for
I could get,
this meeting, we can have a little longer discussion on this.
Yeah.
And that can be part of your update.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the, item in front of us, which is the bond for the Albert Brown Center. It has been motioned and seconded. I think we've spoken about this. I'm gonna call a question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Ruthie.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's have the bond conversation for the next finance committee, because I would assume that the rest of the council would be interested in having it. Up next, we're gonna jump out of order oh no, I'm sorry, we're still in order. It is a request for a budget transfer from our corporation council. Corp council. Alrighty.
Is it here? Nice.
Will you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, this budget transfer, we are moving our payroll line, I will use payroll to our consultant line in order to make up some of the gap in our consultant line. I would like to enter into the client section and want to speak with you guys more broadly, if possible, about the upcoming.
Sure. All right, we're gonna go into attorney-client session and, city staff can remain. Unless you have a,
And it should be easy, just put zeros at the bottom. So we should be broke. Oh, now, I'm just hoping real estate values don't tank.
Yeah. Guys, just keep watching Zillow and not letting my house.
We're back on,
As long as it's out there.
We are back on. I have a committee report that reads resolution, of the common council approving a budgetary transfer to the 2026 corporation council budget to consultant in the amount of $75,000 from regular pay in the amount of $75,000. The estimated financial impact is $75,000. Or would that be zero? Because it's budgeted funds already.
when it comes out of contingency, we consider it financial impact.
There would be financial impact of the.
Oh, okay.
75,000.
Okay, so the,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, zero, it's not.
It is zero.
I'm sorry, it's zero on this.
all right.
Oh,
It's
I
regular
signed
pay.
consultant
Yeah.
and I just interpreted that as contingency.
So the estimated financial impact of this budget transfer is $0. Can I get a motion?
I motion.
Motion by Alderwoman Marvelli, seconded by Alderwoman Mickens. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
I asked
Stay.
Rebecca to stay for the next item.
Okay,
Which I,
so-
Michael said switch.
We are now moving out of order kind of for the rest of the meeting. So up next will be the disposition policy.
It's not here.
It's not.
Well, we sent it back
sent
to
it back.
committee last night.
There's
So,
two like, so.
Mike, would you like to discuss
Sure.
items to the disposition?
I spoke with Rebecca earlier. Anyway, on what I presented. It's pretty much I was brought up to speed by someone who says, well, what happens is when you target a certain entity, therefore that becomes the challenge on, everybody read what Rebecca sent out about challenging and how it could go astray with, a challenge to different sections in the nonprofit, okay? Along those lines, I did modify that. Okay, and, I gave a copy to Rebecca. And since this is not a law, this is a policy. And that's what it is now. People are coming to get the dispositions, okay, these properties. They're coming to us for a service. They're coming to us. That policy is not a law. Okay, that's not a law. Right, okay. So what it is, it's a guideline, to ascertain property from the city of Kingston, be it at an auction or if it's up for sale. You know, just a free sale, whatever it's going to
But
be.
guideline isn't enforceable. I mean, that's just.
Guidelines are,
The policy, you can enforce your policy, so essentially.
Let's not do back and forth. Let's
Right.
let Mike finish and then we can ask questions.
okay, so what I did is I redrafted my original draft. Okay? And then I gave it to Rebecca and I asked her, can you take a look?
And you haven't sent it to us, right?
No, I just did it today. I mean,
A few minutes ago.
I'm like, I don't know.
Previously.
I walked in and I said.
I would like to go into attorney-client session and ask questions that I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah.
I am good with that. So we will be going back into attorney-client session and city staff can remain.
Open session.
All right, we are exiting attorney-client session, and we are going to take no action this month on the amendments to the disposition policy. The next item on our agenda, thank you, Rebecca. The
Thank
next item, continuing out of order, we are going to jump to resolution number 9, the traffic calming fund resolution by Alderwoman Marvelli. Marissa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank my colleague for the opportunity to present this resolution, and I'm by no means taking credit for it. It's building upon a lot of work of people who came before me, and including, you know, all of those who served on the council when the speed zone cameras were the program was approved and installed. I also really want to give credit where credit's due to the Complete Street Advisory Council, because it was their guiding your documents that they shared with the council last year, and then they shared with me when I came on, that really you know, helped me get an understanding for the importance of allocating revenue from the traffic cameras to actual street improvements. So I'm calling this the Traffic Calming Capital Reserve Fund, and I am aware that Mayor Noble has submitted a similar request on our agenda for a fund with the same amount, 50,000, which is fortunately what we discussed in May. So we're all in agreement there, and that's a wonderful thing. And let's see, I'm just following my notes. So the goal is for these funds, which are 50,000, which is not intended to be a benchmark for future allocations, you know, next year, but just in recognition that this 2026 is already halfway over. So I think, and also we do not know how much revenue would be generated initially, so that's why we're starting with the 50,000, and to see what can be accomplished with this amount that would inform work next year. But the goal is to ultimately make the speed zone cameras irrelevant and give really demonstrate cities and government's concern for actually improving pedestrian safety and not just generating revenue. And so by actually installing low cost, quick to install design measures that make key pedestrian crossing to make the roads safer, I think really demonstrate that genuine commitment to safety. And so part of the packet that was included in the agenda was recommendation from the Complete Street Advisory Council for some of those measures that can be done, street painting, asphalt art, high visibility crosswalk, stanchions, and another thing we could do, at least in the speed zone, school speed zone, where people really are questioning if they're going the right speed limit, is to have a show your this is your speed speedometer sign automatic, so they can feel assured that they're not going beyond the speed limit. And of course, all of these measures would have to be worked out carefully with the city engineer at DPW. So that language is included in their job resolution. I think that covers everything.
Questions for Alderwoman Marvelli, President Shaw.
The 50,000. I know that was just a number and we all talked about it. You just kind of place that right here. Would it be, could we do something like the percentage of, or if we kind of know what we need to cover our costs? Because I mean, to me, I would like to see us cover our costs, whatever that cost is, and obviously the company gets whatever they get, but then everything else should go to traffic calming. And whether that's 50,000 or perhaps more, depending on the year, is there a way that we could, first of all, would you be open to something like that? And then is that possible? Or is it, you need to have a number to say, you need like 50,000, you can't just say the price.
I think I would recommend that you can try to attempt a calculation of what that number might be, but I would recommend the resolution itself would define a specific amount to put into the reserve, whatever that is.
And you think 50,000 is safe?
Well, I'll the conversations I've had internally is probably more of a concern of the capacity of the city to even spend the money with the number of capital projects that aren't going right. So you know, I think that you could put the 50 in, see how we do with the 50, and you can continue to add more.
Right.
As that gets spent, you don't have to put all in once, you can add to it like any other reserve. I'd hate to see us put $200,000 in there and have it sit there and not get spent, or we spend $20,000, sits there for 2 years. Because once we put it in there, it's stuck there, right? It's gonna take a resolution every time we want to use it. I mentioned earlier tonight, we just used $1.2 million of fund balance to pay pipe plant settlements. That's gonna be a hit on our fund balance when we measure it again at the end of 26. Anything that we take out of the fund, and this money would otherwise be in the fund balance, we put in a reserve, that goes out of that unappropriated fund balance calculation. So I think it's prudent to put money in there, but I think we should be looking at putting money in there that might be used within a short period of time, 6 to 12 months, right? So, so I think that's where the 50,000, because there's still money available. It's a small amount of money, but there's still money that from bonding that has not been spent yet.
So my other question, and this stems from the fact that we all know DPW is short-staffed. Like they have the same couple people who are flagging for the paving, making the sign, painting the crosswalks, and so I know that several of you are waiting for things to happen and they're just so short-staffed. Similar to, how KPD has specific officers for traffic enforcement. Could we use this fund to staff a person who is, their job is to do things for traffic calming, like painting the crosswalks, because having those.
I
And also-
at you, but to me, the way you accomplish that would not be put into it would be just to do a budgetary transfer. You could actually just do a budgetary transfer, right? Because the mayor makes personal decisions.
Yeah,
Right? So
the
you could
reason
put
why-
money, you could put theoretically, right? Let's just say we budgeted $200,000 and we expect 250,000. The budgetary transfer could be put in to increase revenue by 50,000, increase staffing by 50,000. Or whatever that number is, 50,000 isn't gonna hire the person,
Right.
but it could be put towards overtime.
Yeah, because I was just thinking when you were saying like how we're gonna spend this money and who's gonna do all these projects.
I'm gonna let,
I-
sponsor.
One, I caution against, spending it on capital that it comes reliant on the bond. The idea of these capital improvements, that it's a one-time expenditure that, immediately, you, hopefully, the improvements saw in, in those traffic intersections, so. So majority leader Hirsch had proposed giving a greater pay raise to our, important crosswalk guards. So I just don't know about the idea of having that rate dependent on the fund.
Again, I'm fine, I'm just thinking like. If we have these ideas and it's gonna take some of our staff to do the work, so if it's not this funds, then it's something that we have to consider come budget time. Because. we are so short-staffed.
So before we jump to Ben, so this is a capital reserve fund, so we would have to make it something else. I'm with Marissa on this. I think it should just be used for capital expenses personally. And will this fund generate interest?
I have to look into whether it would require a separate cash account. If it doesn't require a separate cash account, it could just be where some of these reserves are just designations on your balance sheet. And you don't actually have to pull the money out and fund the reserve. I tend to think that this would fall into that category, but I'll have to look at that.
And so
A hybrid approach could work though, where, you could start out with 50,000 and put it into a capital reserve. But we could get a couple months down the line or a month down the line, if there's additional money. You could look at doing a budgetary transfer and not putting that money in the fund, but using that money to fund something within the operating budget. But, Marissa is right in that, because eventually this money may disappear in time, right? That's the goal. We don't want to keep doing speed camera tickets, right? So you don't want to become reliant on this money to fund expenses that you would ordinarily come out of the operating budget, to the extent that those expenses are continual year after year, like say hiring a new person, right? But they could be used to pay for employees to do specific jobs on, say, overtime basis, or that you can peel back if the money wasn't there. And that's probably a conversation with the mayor. If the council were to make a suggested budgetary modification of that nature, would he utilize that? Would he, encourage DPW to utilize that? Or what other department, I assume would be DPW?
Ben,
Would the advisory council have continued say in how these funds are allocated or spent?
So I struggled with that because I'm new. And I don't know the process for an advisory council, and they don't typically direct city staff on what
They can't.
they can't. So they can make recommendations, and then our only hope that the DPW and city engineer, takes that.
Correct.
well, if it is a restricted reserve fund, they would need to bring those recommendations to us because we're the appropriating body. And so we would take or disregard their recommendations.
But the question was about the advisory.
Yeah.
It's only advisory.
So it would operate largely like the recreation fee reserve, like if you think about how, the request has to be made to the common council, would like to use it for X, Y, Z. Similar thing here, I would like to use the funds for X, Y, Z. Advisory council may have, they may support that request. You would have to determine whether or not that falls into the definition of what the reserve was set up for, and if you want to use the funds for that. And then hopefully the council would say yea or nay.
Tara?
Yeah, I would rather have a name change, so such that it's not a capital reserve fund. We can call it something
I
else.
did change the name, it is traffic calming capital reserve fund.
But take out the capital.
By law, it has to be capital.
Oh, really?
It has to be capital. That's the state law that we're following. The allowable reserve, but capital being, it can be equipment, it can be. Capital is anything that has a useful life over 1 year. There might be some things that wouldn't fall into that category, maybe,
So what about striping?
striping wouldn't,
So that wouldn't.
that wouldn't fall into that, I wouldn't think. I mean, it's gonna be a case by case basis, but generally, like labor, I don't know that. I guess you could make the argument that the paint is extending the life of something, but,
Connect everything.
some of these things will be conversations. So is it capital? Is it operating? But the statute is municipalities are allowed to have a capital reserve for capital projects. That's the whole point of that. Is kind of going back to some things you've been bringing up, Terrell, is like to offset the cost of borrowing, right? Because these are typically going to be projects the city would otherwise borrow for. And that's the intent of these capital projects, like reserves.
So on the traffic calming, okay, any projects that are associated with that, who would perform that work? And that's gonna be off your point. And I think I know my answer, but I do know my answer. It's going to be the DPW. So I guess my question would be, can we move those funds from A to B to offset the cost of the DPW doing that, be it 4 hours, 2 hours, whatever they need to do? How does that work?
I think we're talking two different animals. I think that to the extent that the revenue exceeds the amount in the budget, you can do two different things with that revenue. You can do one thing or the other thing, or both things. And those two things are set up a capital reserve to fund equipment, to fund actual capital work on the streets, or whatever it is, speed tables, et cetera. The capital reserve can do that, but you could also pass a budgetary modification to increase the revenue and then increase the expense where you want to see that money spent within the city budget. for that year. The caveat is the capital reserve will carry, anything that's not spent will carry over from year to year. Once that money's in there, it'll carry over until it's unspent or, unearmarked by the council. Any budgetary modifications would expire at the end of the year, provided that there's no purchase order. But, you know, I mean, this year, if the council were to pass a budgetary modification, you know, sometime in the next 30 to 60 days, that money could be spent anytime between now and the end of the year. It just has to be obligated. So that money could be put into personnel lines, it could be put in the overtime line, it could be put into, I mean, really, personnel costs are really the one thing that normally wouldn't go in the capital fund. Other than that, most of the things we're talking about are capital expenses.
Marissa, you can always jump in to answer anything.
I just want to
Answer it.
say one example of a BPW not doing it would be if there was an installation at one of the intersections.
Okay.
So then you would have an artist.
Yeah, so I'm seeing two supporting roles for personnel, the ones that Andrea and Mike mentioned, the actual work of installing these things. The other personnel, where I feel that we might be short-staffed is who decides where and what types of things are placed. Because I feel like there's currently a backlog because I've been asking since February for decisions on some traffic calming methods and not getting a decision, a final anything happening. So it's just another place where we need personnel to support doing this work.
So I think that this is really important, and I think we're all thinking of, and maybe it's the sponsor's intention that these do kind of strike off those low-hanging fruit of small items that do take, you know, staff time. But as John said, if this accumulates year over year and generates a significant amount of funds in that account, we can knock off some of those larger capital projects that we're concerned about bonding right now. Like if we needed to add, you know, sidewalks on Lucas Avenue, that's something that, that's just an example of something that would be a larger stuff. $50,000 right now.
$50,000 to start,
Just low hanging
but,
fruit.
you know, you're at 260,000 collected. You're at 260,000 collected right now. There's a lot of years left. It's just, you know, we are seeing, you know, right now, you know, there's a pause between school ending and summer, you know, summer school kicking in. But yeah, there's a lot of tickets. I mean, we've collected just more than 50% of the tickets have been issued out. There's a gap of time between when the tickets are issued and when they hit a mailbox and when that person pays it. So, you know, we know our collection rate's it's not gonna be that number. But you know, there's a lot of revenue left to be generated more likely.
I know you're cautious about getting into places and letting it sit and not being used, but do you feel that, I think that number's low. 50,000?
Yeah.
I think it should get jacked up.
Well, I think, I suggested 50 because that's the number we have right now. I mean, you could come back in 2 months and add more to it. There's nothing stopping you know, you can, you know, this doesn't need to be a one-time thing.
Okay, because that's what I was worried about this resolution, is like, I think 50,000.
Are you dialed in?
I
No,
want to
you're
make
not.
sure that
No.
we.
No, there could be a resolution adding funds to this capital reserve. You know, to the extent that this is revenue that is above and beyond what was budgeted.
And my question about the money being increased is because even somebody just brought it up, I mean, you brought it up about Michelle, about, crosswalks, okay? I don't know what they get paid, but apparently it's not enough. Yeah, so you know what, I don't know if you even have enough to go around, and you can retain that kind of people, that 50 grand will go too far, right?
Well, yeah, but once again, I think we're talking two different animals, right? So that's not the capital that you could actually, let's say we come back and next month and, you know, we've now collected 350,000, right? Now, we had 200,000 in the budget, you added 50 in a capital fund, yet you've collected 100,000 more than what was anticipated and what you've put in the capital fund. The council could pass a budgetary transfer to increase the revenue, right? Because we're going to receive more revenue than what we anticipated and put that money into the crossing guard line. And you can put it there. It doesn't ever, that money would just never go into the capital fund. It's money that's been received by the city, revenue received by the city in excess of what was budgeted. So you can appropriate that money, right? And it would be up to the mayor to expend that money. But once again, the only caveat being is that because it's not capital, it's an operating budget, expires at the end of the year, you would have to, if you want to carry that forward into the following year, you'd have to make an appropriation. All that said, by October, as you're deliberating the budget, well, I think we all have a better idea of where the revenue might land next year.
So one thing based on what other people have asked. So we have capital 50,000 for capital, but we're not budgeting any added personnel time to implement this stuff from DPW. So how are we accounting for that?
I'm sorry.
The added personnel time that it will take to implement these.
Well, I think that's something that a conversation that we have to have, but also we could consider things like, you mentioned having the speed feedback signs close to the school zones. Like that is something, can't remember how much we spent on those when we bought those, but that's something that, especially if we're not getting the ones that are movable, it won't take a lot of time. So I think that, we just have to be aware of it. And I wasn't, when I came into this meeting, I wasn't trying to advocate for more staff, but I don't remember, something triggered me to say, like, wait, how are we gonna get this stuff done when we don't have it? But I think that there still are some stuff, I think we just need to be thoughtful of how, that we are really short-staffed. But I think, like you said, the abstract art, whatever it's called, asphalt. I knew I was saying it wrong, but asphalt art, and the speed feedback signs, if they're permanent, that doesn't take a lot of time, so it just, I think being thoughtful until we get up the staff a little bit more and.
Just kind of make something else you can do is between now and the end of the month, have a conversation with DPW and the mayor. And if they believe that utilizing some additional money beyond $50,000 would be helpful to get some of this work done, you could potentially do that budgetary transfer I'm talking about. You could take from the revenue, put it into whatever staffing line would be appropriate. In a couple of weeks, I can give you an updated number to reach out to me. I can tell you where we're at. So that whatever money you're now appropriating, we know that we're receiving that, because I really do think that in order to appropriate the money, we should know that it's coming in, right? And I looked at the revenue changes day to day. I mean, I can see how much is being collected, so. I think in a few weeks
But I do think that we'll have projects to cover $50,000 that won't take a lot of staff. I think we just have to not pick the ones that are gonna be, just again, be thoughtful of what they have to do.
Did you have the opportunity to look at any other like-sized municipalities that may have adopted this?
I have looked at, Cookie Street Advisory Council sent me a few websites, NATCO being one of them, of examples of how other cities have utilized their, traffic safety funds. And, it was included in the equity, recommendations for equity, that was submitted to council last year, and I'm happy to circulate that again. Because that had some great links in there for how other communities have used it.
I don't have a committee report for this. Are you looking to move tonight on this?
You want my?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, I have it.
and I think if
Oh, is that different than what you emailed? I'll just.
that's kind of one more thing. You can make an argument that staffing is capital, but staffing does by nature have to go into it would get charged in the general fund. I think you would then create like some type, have to have like a billing mechanism between DPW and the reserve and.
I don't.
I just think, I think it would be a little cumbersome. I think it would be cleaner just to do a budgetary
Yeah,
transfer.
that's what I said, it's something just triggered it, and I was, how the heck are we gonna get this done? And so that's why I asked the question, but because it was just popping up, I didn't think it through that, you know. So I'm fine with that as long as we're all aware that they're short staffed.
It's completely allowable. I mean, you could clearly do a budgetary transfer and put money in the capital fund. You can do both. Right, so you cover the personal expenses to do the work as well as the capital itself and the equipment itself.
And do we need more staffing in engineering as well to make those decisions about where the traffic calming things should be? That's kind of what I'm experiencing.
I think that's a question for John when he comes and presents his budget to us.
They'll look at this, as is DPW.
Yeah.
I like it, read it.
And so does that mean we can skip item number 8? That's just the mayor's bootleg version?
I mean, yeah, I'm fine with that, it's good, I
Question.
prefer this coming from the council and from Marissa's, so that's my opinion.
Just use some of the language from his in the terms of like the citations of state laws, as long as we're all,
Yeah, it's
I haven't seen yours, it wasn't in a packet when I downloaded it, I'm sorry.
You have the correct one, right?
it's the same one that the mayor used, yes.
Okay.
And then I looked it up.
Well, there are a number of different capital reserves we can create. I mean, we keep talking about solar panels, we can create a decarbonization fund. That's allowable under state law. Talked about the tax stabilization fund,
What did you say, Wednesday?
tax stabilization.
It's referencing section 6A.
60 of G.
Okay.
All right, so this committee report reads resolution of the common council establishing a traffic calming capital reserve fund as authorized by New York State General Municipal Law, section 6C, for the purpose of enhancing pedestrian safety by deterring dangerous driving. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Marissa, you don't want a motion?
The estimate,
Oh.
with
Yeah.
initial funding. Do I need to say what account that's gonna come from?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, you can just say from the traffic safety speed cameras. And I think actually.
All right, any other discussion? Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you.
Well,
Well, let's vote first.
Oh, true, maybe.
Yeah. 1130.
A 1:11:30.
Point 1292 schools and speed violations.
Yeah, basically, I hope it does.
I think it's a good use of the money. It's good, you know, in a way that doesn't create also budgetary stress forward and that we're not relying on it to endlessly budget, so.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, so the next item on our agenda is the request for budget transfer. I guess before we get to that, I just want, in case anybody listening at home is eagerly awaiting item number 6, the request for, the real property tax law 458A disabled veterans, we're gonna table that until next month.
And just divine,
Sure.
Dan Baker will be here to discuss all three of the tax.
Yes, he was not able to make it tonight. So let's jump to item number 7, request for budget transfer for the mayor's office from Mayor Noble, who is not here. John, are you talking about this?
I guess it was just, it was, very, yeah, there was, I didn't write the.
All right, I'll read the communication. It says that the mayor is requesting $100 from dues, seminars and association fees to travel reimbursement, as well as requesting $100 from general material supplies to office supplies. Does anybody have any questions on that? I mean, I don't know what it's for.
Is it for staff?
Well, no, it's for travel expenses, so I would assume that's
Travel?
No, it's
From
it's
his
like,
own-
it's way, if you went to like.
mileage
It's like,
reimbursement.
it was like, it's already been spent, I think, so. Yeah,
I'm sorry, John, are you ready to make one or are you ready?
I can have.
I did, yeah,
Well, that's all, so I'm gonna personally vote against this because I, one, don't think that, you know, elected officials should get mileage when you work full-time. And I also think that the mayor has been using a lot of this mileage that we've signed the vouchers for to lobby the state for positions in opposition to the council. So I will be a no.
You may have to repeat,
I will.
not your statement, but what the,
Yes, I'll read the committee report.
who presented.
Oh,
I'm not on the movie.
Oh, you were fine.
oh, it's sold.
That, right?
He's looking like something.
Benefit and Michael Hill.
Oh, I didn't even notice all this old ones. Oh, no, that is not. No,
Yeah, those should be two things that were sent out.
and here is the done. It's just totally blind to be still, not already feasible.
So John, after a long day, you like to moment, like balance your checkbook or anything, I was like.
It's all Excel.
Yeah, I just want to get a spreadsheet.
That's not a surprise,
Yeah.
Because we're not meeting the next few weeks, I may reach out, like, I asked Lisa to contact me if there's a pile of vouchers. So I'll definitely come in and sign, but then I'll just reach out to see if anybody else can, see that John's office isn't waiting for us.
I thought we agreed people just wouldn't get paid. That's.
It's like work here, you go on, you go off phone calls.
All right, so this is a committee report of transferring from.
My handwriting's terrible, I'm sorry, it's right up.
That's why, oh, dues and seminars, okay, from, this is $100 from dues and seminars.
John,
Okay, we'll need
why
to,
are you so bad?
okay, that.
That's fast, but yeah.
So it's discriminating. From, so this is from, $100 from dues and seminars and $100 from general materials. And this is $200 for travel reimbursement and $100 to office supplies. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion. I should be a doctor.
I'm sorry if I get done to do.
Can I get a second?
I've heard about what.
So odd that they left the numbers like that.
Interesting. I get any further discussion? All right, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Opposed? Carol, I didn't hear your vote.
Because they're round numbers.
Okay, thank you. That carries 3-2 with, Alderman Tierney and Alderwoman Mickens in opposition. Thank you, John.
Oh, here.
Oh,
Let's sign up too.
oh, thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is a request to authorize expenditure of CHIPS funding.
I'm sure all of you are quite aware of what, the city gets CHIPS funding from New York State DOT as. Essentially every municipality does this type of work throughout the state. We have an annual request just to ask for the council's approval. We did this last year, basically to accept the grant, right? This is, we get an annual award letter showing us what our balances are. And because this isn't part of the typical operating budget and there's no formal resolution that would come for bonding or like a grant. This is like the annual question that they get an approval on the books. So on behalf of all the affected departments, I would submit this. Yeah, you see this application come from the state. So it's giving DPW the authority to utilize the money in furtherance of their program.
Can you remind us what CHIPS is?
It is a consolidated highway improvement. I'm not sure if I was back in here.
My favorite streets.
Paver streets,
For the most
the
part.
paved New York, there's paving, there's EWR, which is for, I believe, the winter recovery, STR for touring routes, and POP, which is paver potholes. So, there's different buckets of money that DPW and engineering, they work together with these funds and utilize them to, improve your streets and sidewalks, et cetera.
And then there's a certain age of, in the time in which they've last been paved, in which they are eligible for funding. So that's why certain streets get paved and others seemingly don't. It's because they were paved too recently to be funding eligible.
Or you'll see where streets are cut and you wonder why they skipped like 200 feet and it's not there. That's because that was already in the CHIP fund from 5 years ago.
Yeah, there's that 10 year, I think,
10 years.
10-year, and our department actually submits we prepare the reimbursement request. But we work with DPW on preparing these on a quarterly basis.
All right, any other questions for Carol? All right, our committee report reads, authorize the expenditure of the city's 2026-2027 New York State DOT CHIPS, Pave New York, EWS, STR, and POP apportionment, balance of 3 million, hold on. That says 3 billion.
No, it isn't.
No, okay, there it is.
It is very.
Building a fridge.
Okay, of $3,333,386.68. In addition to rollover funds of $7,441,736.79 through a dedicated capital fund. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Alderman Ham, seconded by
Second.
Alderman Block. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, John. All right, the last item on our agenda for this evening is the old business resolution number 96. Authorizing to expend up to $31,000 from the recreation fee reserve to ability gap for the project budget for the New York State Zoo's Botanical Gardens and Aquaria Grant for the Foresight Nature Center Storage Building Solar Project. I had made a motion last night to refer this back to the Finance Committee tonight because I do not believe that this fulfills the intent of the rec funds, which is a restricted reserve fund, much like we just created. And I think that those funds would be much better used for things like swing sets, basketball courts, those kinds of things. I think that this is, while I definitely support this project and would prefer to see it funded from somewhere else, I just didn't think that the rec fund was most appropriate. So, John, were you recommending that this just come out of contingency?
Yeah, are we talking about the 37?
Yeah, 31's 172.
Yeah, it was, where that got sent back. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend bonding for a small event, so I would just take contingency.
What, there was an L?
You didn't?
What did you say? Brian Plattner? I'm not, they, took it around. He just doesn't take a note, I think.
Say that again?
He doesn't take a note.
Right. Do you think that, file 2 to 3?
This is 3.
That's 3.
Yeah.
You have 2 over there, Daryl?
Okay, these meet, these are threes.
Oh, there's 3s.
Here's one.
Are these all done ones? Okay. I'm happy to take a file.
I like getting with everybody else's signature, because I know you guys are very proofread. So.
They've got 50-year-old room and I put one downstairs.
But I have to pay like, so it was very solely as per sheet. It's 6 3.
And it stated that we in the charter coming.
Did you send it to us? Did you send it?
No.
You can, you can see if the number.
Sure, in 1990. Point.
And you'll read it.
Or short.
You'll read it for me. I'll read it.
Complete.
Yeah, complete because okay.
These ones are 2s?
You're really sure you're in it. What about the voice? Can you put everything?
The frame does that pollution, like that, to make sure that police can pick up the numbers at all time.
I have really having burden to
Well, you know, it's not bad when I'm not rushing.
Okay. All right, so this committee report now reads authorization to expend $31,172 from contingency to fill the gap for the project budget for the New York State Zoo's Botanical Gardens and Aquaria for the Foresight Nature Center storage building solar project. This is from the grant revenue in the amount of $82,891, as well as now from contingency in the amount of $31,172, and that's going to construction materials and supplies in the amount of $114,063. And the estimated financial impact is $31,172. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Vote.
Yeah, I mean, are we? Okay, no, I guess I'll just shut up.
Oh, okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you all. That concludes our business for this evening.
Did you skip number 6?
Number 6 was tabled because our city assessor could not make it here tonight.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I think I mentioned that from step down.
Okay, so.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Robin.
Oh, thank you, Coleman.
Yeah, it's